Hi, my name is Emily Olafson. This is my recording for the visual childhood visual learning arts, whatever order those words are in. This is my recording for the children's lit video assignment. I'm gonna begin by screen sharing my PowerPoint. 1 second.
There we go. There we go. Okay. There we go. Wait, good. There goes my phone. Good. Okay. Technical difficulties.
Okay. Welcome to my mock lesson. I would like to introduce you to a little something I'd like to call finding inspiration in nature. The book I would like to base this lesson off today is a very sweet one by Misha Archer called Daniel Finds a Poem. This book is basically about a little boy named Daniel who spends all his time in the park and befriends all the animals. And one day he realizes that there's going to be, well, we'll find out on the next page. So let's start. Daniel knows all the rocks, trees, and animals in the park. And then next page.
On Monday morning,
Daniel sees something new on the park gate. A sign reads, "Poetry in the Park, Sunday at 6 o'clock." What is poetry? Daniel says. So Daniel's interested in the poetry event, but he doesn't know what poetry is and he has to learn. So basically, he goes to all the animals in the park that he's friends with and he asks them, "What is poetry?" This is one of my favorite pages in the book because of how beautiful and well rendered this spider web with morning dew is. He looks up in surprise when he hears Spider say, "To me, poetry is when the morning dew glistens." And then this is the final page. Basically, he's gone around to every animal in the park asking, "What is poetry?" And they all tell him something very different, but very profound in a way. And at the very end, it all comes together into one beautiful poem. And this is the one that Daniel performs at the event in the park. Morning dew glistens, crisp leaves crunch. There's a home with many windows in the old stone wall. Cool pools to dive in, sun-warmed sand to lie in, singing at twilight when the day is done. Bright stars in the branches, moonlight on the grass, and silent wings to take me wherever I go. And I don't know if you can see it, but all of his animal friends have come to support him. You have little frog and a squirrel, and somewhere there's the owl and the dog, and somewhere our dear friend the spider, but I haven't found him in here yet. I don't know. Oh, there he is. Isn't he cute? All right. Next page. So our big idea for the lesson today is to look to nature to find inspiration for our art, and we're going to make 2 different types of art today. It's going to be a very big day. First, we will be like Daniel and write a poem about nature and what it means to us. Unfortunately, we don't have any little animal friends to help us, so we'll find some inspiration by looking at pictures and maybe reflecting on what we like about nature. After writing a poem, we'll create a paper mosaic collage, which is basically what the art in the book is, and then use that to build on our poem. So one of the artists that I think is a great inspiration for this topic is Salvador Dali. Now you might be thinking, isn't he the guy that made the clock paintings? And you would be right, but he also did a lot of other things that were that you might not know about. Like one of the very beautiful pieces that he did illustrations for Alice in Wonderland, which you'll see here and here. We have the rabbit and a bunch of our little bug friends over here. And these illustrations are used to build upon the story. They're abstract in nature, and because they're abstract, we can find a lot of different meanings in them that a more realistic painting might not give us. We can find a lot of symbolism in like the dreamlike qualities of this painting. And I think that I might ask what kind of things you see in the painting and what that reminds you of in what you know of the story Alice in Wonderland. I'm realizing now that some of the kids might not be super familiar with Alice in Wonderland. That might, it's not too old. Yeah, that's okay. Never mind. Sidetracked. Anyway, I'd like to ask everyone to think about how this might help us. We might think about how representing our story in a little more of an abstract way, we could use that to give us some new ideas. Like instead of just showing exactly what our poem is about, we can more show what the poem means instead. And then our next inspiration is someone I'm sure you're very familiar with, but you might not know his name yet. His name is Eric Carle, a very famous children's book illustrator. As you can see, he does some very beautiful collage work that is very similar to what we'll do today. So while we're looking at these pictures, I want you to think about all the different types of techniques that he's using. He uses different types of paper, which we won't do today, but we could explore in a further lesson if you guys like this project. He uses different types of paper. He draws on top of his paper collages. He combines a lot of different layering techniques. He tears paper, but he also cuts paper to have different types of edges. There's a lot of different options that we could use today. And as we continue talking about the lesson today, I want you to keep in mind different things about Eric Carle's artwork that you can use in your artwork. So on to the lesson today. Let's start by writing our poems. Now that might seem like a big, scary thing, but it's actually not too hard. First, we'll brainstorm. So when we're brainstorming, I want you to first go into your little mind palace. Imagine yourself walking through the park or through the woods. What are you excited about looking at? I know what I'm excited about looking at. We'll talk about that in a second. Then write a list of words that come to mind when you think about nature. And finally, once you're done with your list, compare the list with your table mates and think about whether or not their list gives you any new ideas that you didn't think of yet. And then we'll move on to writing our poem. We'll start with what we brainstormed and then pick a part of nature that means something to you. And then we'll write a short 5-line poem using some of our brainstormed words to describe this element of nature that we care about. And remember, poems don't have to rhyme if you don't want them to rhyme. Very important. All right, let's do it together. So I know that I like to look for birds because I think that birds are very beautiful and sometimes they're a bit of a challenge to find. So it's always very rewarding when you spot one. Some words that I think relate to this topic a bit are tree, green, soft, feather, all those types of things. And to kind of hone in on my subject for today, I think that I'd like to write about cardinals because they're my favorite bird. So let's read the poem that I prepared. The cardinal, feathers brilliant red, a mask around his eyes, soft plumage on his head, singing songs atop the tree while he puts his kids to bed. Now, I'd let all the kids write their poems, have a bunch of fun, but we have to move on. All right, next part. Let's make some paper mosaics. Now that we have our poems, we're gonna make some paper mosaics. So I'm gonna pass out some paper and glue sticks and scissors, and we'll get started. But first, we have to learn how to make these. Okay, so step 1, on your paper, draw a sketch of what you want to illustrate. I'm not going to abstract today, so I'm just going to draw a cardinal. You can see here, I've drawn a cardinal. Isn't he cute? All right, now I'm going to find the colors of paper that I want to use to fill in this illustration. I think that I need red for his body, black for his black mask, and then I need brown for this branch, green for these leaves, all that kind of stuff. And here we go, I found some. And I think we're ready to move on. This is one of the easier parts. All right, step 3. This is the hard part. We have to tear or cut. Remember, Eric Carle, he uses different types of techniques when making his paper pieces, and we can too. We're gonna tear or cut the construction paper into pieces of many sizes to fit the pieces that we've drawn on in our sketch. So you can see here, I have this round piece is going to be his body. This triangle piece will be his head. I have a wing and a tail and all these bits for the sticks and all these leaves. And I actually realized while making my exemplar for this that doing the background is hard. So maybe I will have them do background colored paper to start with instead of white paper, but live and learn. That's okay. And then after we have all of our pieces cut, we will move on to arranging them and getting ready to glue. As you can see here, I have them ready to be arranged. All right, almost done. Glue down your paper pieces. And secret bonus step, you can draw on top of them with markers to add to the effect. And of course, here's our finished piece. Our beautiful cardinal, isn't he great? And then I have him in person today. I forgot to show myself signing, but I signed my illustration because you always have to sign your beautiful artwork. All right, so what did we learn today? We learned how to brainstorm and write a poem. And we learned how, of course, we learned how to work together to create those poems by giving each other feedback. I think that's very important. It's always good to ask for feedback. And then we made an artwork based off of our poem by reflecting on what we wrote and then asking ourselves, how are we going to best represent this visually? And of course, our big idea for now is looking to nature for inspiration. So of course, we reflected on what nature means to us and what part of nature we care about most. And we made some art to celebrate that because it's always good to celebrate the things you love. All right. I hope you had a wonderful time making art with me today. It's always good to make art. Art is good for the soul. I don't know how to end this. Goodbye. Have a nice night or evening or morning, whatever fits your fancy. Have a good night. I guess it's night for me right now.